Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Continuing on, there was one more technique here for special cleaning techniques playlist. And it's a continuation of that meditation on point A for deviant sexual tendencies. This is the meditation on point B. So it says here, meditation on point B, fix attention on the point B and imagine that all your impurities and grossness are going out from point B from the front of the body. That's what Babaji said. And it says, in the general cleaning which you do, is all from the back of the body, a smoke and vapor. In this case, it is to imagine that they are going out from the front, especially from point B. Let me just say this. Again, these things are all to be used with the Sahaj Marg method of meditation and the introduction to this playlist and all the other videos in order. Like if you want to listen to one of these techniques after you've listened to all of the videos, that's fine. But like to skip ahead, if somebody comes upon this video and you're not sure what this is about, and you just happen to, this YouTube recommends this to you, and you start listening to this, there's a playlist on this channel, and it's entitled, let me go find it here. Put my glasses back on, and here is the playlist. There is a playlist called Special Cleaning Techniques, and there's 3 videos, 1 introduction video and 2 with techniques. And then there's this is the, this adaptation of the Sahaj Marg meditation that I'm calling the Gratefullness meditation. But it's the Sahaj Marg of the way I was taught years ago. Of course, they've changed it now with heartfulness. And if you're not aware of that, you're not aware of that. But anyways, these techniques are to be done with the meditation, which is explained in the playlist on this channel in these videos. And so it says here, imagine that this process is going on, the glow of the Atma and the soul begins to appear from behind. And so Babaji says that, the second master of the system. In the part before that where Charji said, this idea of smoke and vapor going out your back. Well, now you're believing that all of this stuff is coming out of your front with the glow of your soul emerging from behind. It's like cleaning a dirty light, and that cleaning goes on, the light is coming out more and more bright. So here also the cleaning at point B goes on. You have to imagine that the dirt and filth all accumulated there is coming out. Filth is probably not a word that should be used here, I think, in terms of American. And as this cleaning is proceeding, a glow begins to appear from behind, which is light of the Atman, you see, the soul. The process is to be done the morning before beginning morning meditation, but never more than for 10 minutes. So again, these meditation says here, so in the case of both these techniques, meditation on point A and B, the time is limited to 10 minutes. Both are available for men and women. Point A with a certain change in the technique for women only, but otherwise there's no difference. And then Babaji goes on to say, these 2 meditations on point A and B are very useful in correcting the disturbing tendencies of the mind. Since this tendency exists in the majority of cases, these meditations can be safely advised to almost any abhyasi without exception. If the inner state of the abhyasi is very confusingly complicated, this is perhaps another stage, then the preceptor must not try to do anything himself. He should mentally link the abhyasi with the root power, and in the course of time, the abhyasi will be gradually relieved and freed from the complications in the most natural way. And so I want to add to that just a little bit here. And so point B is there to help people have like a thoughtless state. If you're having trouble with too many thoughts in meditation, again, people always want to start thinking that everything is wrong and that they're not doing it right, or they're the grossest person in the world. Some people think that they don't need any cleaning at all, and there's no grossness in their system. And other people think they're the worst people in the world. And when you hear something like this part where Babaji, let me drop in something out of the book here, where Babaji says, The inner state of the Abhyasi is very confusingly complicated. This is perhaps another stage beyond. Then the preceptor must not try to do anything himself. He should mentally link the Abhyasi with the root power. In course of time, the Abhyasi will gradually be relieved and freed from the complications in most natural way. You might see this as a preceptor like twisted lines, squiggly lines of grossness or something. Like that would be a visual way that you might see something like that. Or a person might have some mental illnesses or whatever, and they might not be able to feel the transmission. Usually a person like that isn't going to stick around. But there is, some situations where people are so gross and there's just so much complexity in their internal world that the cleaning technique can't be done in a way that, there's no way to start, right? It's like if everything's chaos and confusing and whatever it might be. And so, and you shouldn't assume that's you. Like just because you hear something like that, you're like, oh, that's me and I'm all messed up. But the idea here is that there is cleaning on these specific points. One, point A, and these techniques that I gave in the last video, if somebody has deviant sexual tendencies. And point B, if people have too many thoughts. If you're having too many thoughts in meditation, you can't, you can't stop your mind. Your mind is like, your thought force, your thought process is out of control. And there's just confusion and you're having trouble focusing, which happens to people also if they're very upset about something, traumatized, like some specific issue. So you do this meditation on point A where the idea of the soul the Atman is glowing from behind and it's becoming brighter as everything that's being cleaned out of point B. Again, the point B is located there in the heart region, which I gave the way that you find it, and you can see there from the image. So you have the idea of where point B is located in the etheric heart, and you can execute this technique in a way of cleaning just to enhance the other aspect of the system and also deal with, help you regulate your mind to the extent where you don't have so many thoughts. But again, if you did this for hours, well, what would be the result? Well, you would become like a zombie. I'm just saying that because it wouldn't happen because people wouldn't, it would be blocked. But again, doing the thing for the 10 minutes it's prescribed. And 10 minutes should be enough. I'm able to achieve a thoughtless state now. When I meditate, I can just stop thinking for minutes at a time, and then just maybe once in a while, a small thought will come here or there. But I could do it probably, I don't know, for a very long time because I've been meditating for years. It's not the goal of the system to be thoughtless, but it's nice just to not think about anything, right? And, it's restful because even when you're sleeping, you're dreaming, but being able to do that is a good thing. And so that technique enhances that. I haven't done it in a long time because I can do it without it now. But I used to benefit from it quite a bit. And then Charji goes on to say this. This technique is to be used when we are helpless. There are certain situations when abhyasis are so gross that we can do nothing for them. I have known even my master on occasion was not able to do anything for them, in the sense of doing actively something for them. Then the only recourse, the sole recourse left at that point, was to connect them mentally with the root power. So this is going back to what Babaji said. And let it descend and do its work. But in terms of this system that we have with Gratefulness Meditation, there's not really preceptors. I've done the sittings here and these things, but, there's no going over to a preceptor's house and being upset or going through a crisis and feeling really gross and having a lot of difficulties. And so these techniques are being given here for that reason. Just there's with any of the kind of cleaning aspect of the system. When my first years of practicing the Sahaj Marg system, I was at the ashram in Georgia. I think it was the second time I had gone there when the master of the system had come to America. And I was sitting there with a couple of engineers, really smart guys with, one of them worked at MIT with something to do with NASA. And the other guy was successful, whatever they were. And they had difficulty with the cleaning process because it wasn't mechanical in nature. It was using your will force, but it was in some ways imaginary. And they had trouble just figuring out how to do it, right? And as you learn to give sittings as a preceptor and you learn these techniques as an Abhyasi, there's some of it where you're supposed to like have a sense how to do it internally. Even more than that, when I first started to read the literature, I realized I understood the real literature because there was information in transmission that was in the literature. The books themselves were encapsulated in some way in the transmission, which is this divine energy that's subtle and has no real, weight to it, no real whatever it is, right? And so, in the transmission, there was the seed form of these books that I was reading in the Sahaj Marg system. And I understood the Sahaj Marg literature and philosophy only because I received the transmission. It's kind of like I want to call it a miracle, but something like no other like thing that I've ever experienced, and probably there's nothing like this on the planet. And so when the second master of the system first started making preceptors, he didn't like have any instruction books. He didn't have this manual. He didn't have any, he didn't have any written literature. He just told them to go out and work. And he thought they would be like him, and they would just go into a state of meditation, and they would know what to do because it would be there internally. But they weren't connected enough, and they had their own, self-doubt and their own distracting thoughts that they weren't able to go into a state of like go into these sittings and let's learn how to do it from doing the work. It's like, being thrown into the water and just learning how to swim, but not everybody, maybe that doesn't work for everybody. And so the idea is that these techniques and all these things are inside of you, and you have an awareness of them, and you'll find the way to do it when you start doing it, right? As long as you're working towards it, you're trying out the techniques, and you're having some faith in them, and you just start doing them. As you do them, things change, and you start doing them better and better. Like the 9 p.m. prayer, the universal prayer, we pray, all our brothers and sisters in the world are filled with love and devotion, and real faith is growing stronger in them. The idea is that they are coming to spirituality. And after a while, that thought changes to a feeling. And the feeling is, then transmitted to transmission. And you become a conduit where that goes out to your area, your neighborhood, or whoever's out there in the world. And so this, you by doing it, you're learning how to operate and work on different levels of, creation, right? There's the mental level where you have the prayer and the thought. And then you start, feeling things, and you move towards working with your heart instead of your mind. And then you are opening up and becoming a conduit. And with that, the energy is shifted, and there's a change, and you're working on the energetic field, right? Through prayer at first, and then through this feeling that you have from the prayer, and then the work just takes over. And so the more you do these things, the more you learn how to do them, right? You follow the basic guidelines, not for more than 10 minutes, and you do it the way it's prescribed. You locate point B in this case. And then, in the course of the meditation, there's this cleaning, and then you see what the results are. Is it easier to meditate after you clean point B? So people have trouble in their morning meditation and have too many thoughts, or if going through a crisis and they can't focus because they can't stop thinking about all the trauma and difficulty they're going through. Well, when that's the case, this technique can be effective, right? And so it's also knowing when to use the techniques and not to overuse them and not use them like a crutch, and only use them when it's a good time to use them. And there's it's a learning process, right? You're learning about your internal world as well as learning about the system that operates on an internal level. Okay, so as far as I remember, these are all the different types of techniques, special techniques that are now in this folder, this playlist, not folder, this playlist. I probably will do some follow-up videos and talk about these things a little bit more, and that will be included in this playlist. But like I said, everything that you do in Sahaj Marg, you're learning to connect with your internal world by utilizing your heart, using like the energy, the soul energy that's within you, and then you're learning to operate and work and perceive things on a different level. And it's like anything else, it's more difficult at first, but then as time goes on, you learn more and more, and you just, like I said, I wasn't working on not having any thoughts. And then one day, maybe about 5 years ago, I was like, I wonder if I could just stop thinking, now that I've been meditating for so long. And I just, was meditating and I just stopped thinking. And I just sat there with no thoughts, just, sitting there conscious, awake, not sleeping, but without any thoughts. And, once in a while a little thought would pop in here, but I wouldn't attend to it. I wouldn't, move, I wouldn't indulge in the thought. And then I could do that for quite a long period of time, just from years and years of meditation. There's a great, story I saw. It was kind of like it was like on PBS. It was about this martial artist, and they had cool art, like, like Japanese or Chinese art, whatever it was. This person was going to learn Kung Fu, so I guess it might have been Chinese, and they had this guy narrating it. It was well done. And this kid went to go to to live with the monks and learn how to do Kung Fu or karate or something like this. Let's call it Kung Fu. And so he went there and he had to like scrub the floors and he had to, clean the place up. And, all they did was they made him punch his hands into, like barrels of like, at first like grain and sand and, all these things. And he didn't learn any martial arts. And he came back home and his family and all the neighbors were like, oh, look at him. They were praising him, like how great a man he was going to become. And he was becoming like a Shaolin monk. And, this was like a big deal for the village. And he was like a celebrity or star. And he started getting really anxious because he had quit and he had come back to his village and because he didn't think he was learning anything. And they were praising him. And he just, at some point, he said, it's a fraud and it doesn't work and I'm a fraud. And he started to like cry and there was like a big butcher block table. And he slammed his fists onto the table and the thing cracked in half. And so he realized that, wow, this is working, right? And so he went back and became, and learned how to be one of these monks. He went through the various stages, but it took some while for him to understand the system and how it worked. It starts off with something that doesn't appear to be anything to do with Kung Fu, but as he went through these processes, he slowly learned to become, a Kung Fu master. One of the things about the Sahaj Marg system is that even when you're having trouble meditating, the meditation's still going on different levels. Your subconscious, maybe the restlessness and the thoughts that you're having and the uncomfortable meditation is actually supposed to be like that. Oftentimes it is. Master Charji said that his best sittings were ones that he felt restless and uncomfortable, but he found that afterwards he got the maximum amount of benefit and gain. Sometimes it took months to process all that he had received. And so, like, just getting up and doing the practice and doing these things, you're learning how to use them. And, there's a leap of faith with anything like this because you're operating on a different level of consciousness and all these other things. And so, again, let me just wrap this one up here. But again, learning, you're not an expert. You have to start somewhere, right? As Babaji said, may my beginning be like mine and my end like his, meaning the Divine Master, right? So that you have wherever your beginning is yours, but ultimately all of our endings would be the same, and we would go to the highest levels and go to the highest possible potential and become the best version of ourselves, a realized soul. Anyway, so I'll continue on if I find anything more in the book that's worth sharing here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely important for the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.